Friday the 28th, we'll go to the museum. Let's try to meet again as quickly after 3 as we can up by Main House, leave by 3:10 or so. And we'll be looking at Tintoretto and Veronese down there. I think that for that Friday, I'll probably also have you guys do the St. Jerome reading, and we'll talk about that while we're down there, because there's a nice Veronese St. Jerome that will tie that in. So I'll be sending you an email reminder of that, but our very last reading response will be that day, and I'll get you guys back here. If I don't, you guys don't have to worry about it, okay? It'll be my problem, not yours. Right? It'll work out. I'm going to be grading your drafts tomorrow morning and getting your comments back. That means if you are the people in here who haven't given that to me yet, it gives me by tomorrow morning and it won't count up late. Yeah, because if it comes in before I get to it, I don't count it late. Okay? So those are the two announcements, right? Museum Friday next Friday, and three announcements, right? The reading on St. Jerome by Millard and Meese for next Friday, and you'll get your comments back on your draft tomorrow. What? Yes, that's with the response. That's the last one with the response. That's correct. Thank you. Okay, so we left off talking about mannerism in Italian Venetian painting. And mannerism is this term. We need to go back and talk about this a bit, because it's going to shoot us into Tintoretto. So Paris Bordone is a really good proponent, example of mannerism. Now, mannerism is this term, for those of you who are not as well versed in all of this, is a term for sort of late Renaissance art, after about 1520. And it's a term that would have been utterly foreign to anybody working at the time. It's not a term that they used. Mannerism is a term that was coined only in the 1920s, 1921 to be exact. Art critics had noticed for a very long time that art after about 1520, Renaissance art after about 1520, had gotten strange by Renaissance standards. Renaissance art through most of the high Renaissance period. And this is not so true for Venice, because Venice is a very different animal. But suffice to say that Renaissance art in Rome and Florence had been dictated by balance and proportion and organic harmony between all parts, right? All of these things. And it started to sort of now fall apart. We started seeing artists going in awkward, I don't want to be pejorative, going in different directions, beginning around 1520. And this movement, which was a movement toward greater artificiality, that's why mannerism is the term, right? It's more artificial. And we'll talk more directly about what things to look for that. But that the term was based on that artificiality is like being mannered, right? It's not like having manners, but it's like being mannered, right? Being affected, right? Artificial in your have you meet somebody who's overly theatrical in the way that they talk, right? Like drinking tea with your pinky out, little things like that, right? Or just this, very, very sort of, again, I'm trying to think of the right terms for this, but just, yeah, exactly, very over the top. Very, everything seems to be grander than it really is, right? More rhetorical, flourished, right? And people saw the art being that way. So with two or three things to look for, right, insofar as mannerism is concerned. One is sort of bodies, physical bodies, that seem more based on, seem less and less based on looking at human bodies, and more based maybe on looking at other works of art first instead. So the rippling flesh of John the Baptist on the right? With all those muscles that don't really adhere to muscle groups, you know what I mean? They're just there's like three muscles and there maybe one should be. Right? Do you see all that? Look at his arms and his shoulders. It's just the way it just sort of contorts and ripples. It looks like a brain. brain almost, you know? Compared to Christ's body, which seems to be a little bit more sort of anatomically sound, right? Sorry, Margaret? Yeah, exactly. Then more natural than the Baptist. And then add to that musculature, which is, again, sort of unnatural, artificial. The pose becomes rhetorical, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's almost as if the pose has to mean something itself. And it becomes, where this would do, it becomes this, right? It's just, it's again, as Martin says, over the top, right? So the Baptist pose also is very sort of overly contorted and twisted. And on a certain level, you get the sense that it's that way so that we can see that back, right? So with the human body, that's part of it, right? The artificiality of poses and anatomies is part of it, right? Other things that become part of mannerism are sort of artificial spaces as well. And so with Paris Bordone's work of David and Bathsheba up in Baltimore on the left, right, we have this incredible stage set. It's almost as if, you know, David in the window and Bathsheba at the bath are just sort of secondary excuses to paint this incredibly elaborate architecture, right? And you remember that he learned this from Sebastiano Serlio, who was had written a treatise on architecture and was friends with Paris Bordone, and whose drawings Bordone knows even before Serlio publishes The Man of Menwin. And what was that? He's also, he's in tight with a lot of people there in the 1520s, right? And 1530s. So Serlio he's one of these unwritten titans of late Renaissance art. It's really important. It's also kind of really strange, because the architecture itself is very mannered. It's kind of artificial. You would never see a portico like that. You know, it's as overblown as the Baptist body is in its own way, right? So that space, which is strange in itself, is also sort of a mannerist element. But on the right, we see what's more typical of mannerist space, which is that it gets really compressed. It gets kind of flattened out. So this is abnormal that way. It's mannerist in different ways. But mannerist paintings tend to sort of bring everything really close to the picture plane and then sort of flatten the space behind it. And by that I mean that instead of seeing a series of evenly metered steps back into space, you get foreground and you get background and this sort of chasm between the two. And this is much more clear, this is much more apparent in the baptism picture, right? There's no sort of middle ground, right? You get foreground and then background, right? And this becomes even more clear when you get figures in a landscape, whereas on the left it leaves confusing perspective still, right? So, that's another element, compressed or inconsistent, disunified, inorganic spaces, right? And what we'll see with other pictures, I think on a certain level here, artificial colors. The angel's pink, for example, right, against that orange. And we'll see other pictures where the colors get even more sort of, like Richard Simmons' workout clothing. You know, I mean, there's sort of like, hot pinks and neon greens, right? And all of this has up to sort of an overall sense of artificiality. And a lot of it comes out of the fact that mannerist artists are basing their works on other artists' work as much as they're basing it on observation of nature. So you get one step removed from looking at the world around you, and things get one step more artificial, right? And if you've ever, when you work in the studio, that's something you come up against. You do prep drawings, they're all nice and fresh and bright and vibrant, and then you do the final work, and it's how do you maintain that, right? So, imagine if it were somebody else's work that was the intermediary instead of your own. Right? That's one of the things that, there are other things. People think, politics in the 1520s, Italy was been invaded by the Roman Emperor, right? Rome was sacked in 1527. Does this politics of instability add to an art of instability? Maybe, right? Has something to do with it, okay? So, Bordone becomes this sort of paragon of mannerism. And his mannerism is enhanced by his own career because he goes to Fontainebleau in France at the invitation of the King of France, Francis I, and he sees Fontainebleau is an old hunting palace that had been converted by Francis into this sort of winter palace, if you will, his Mar-a-Lago. Right? And he hires Italian artists to come and decorate the rooms at Fontainebleau. And in particular, Rosso Fiorentino, who is really an arch Mannerist artist. And Bordone goes there right on the time he takes this. And you can see these rhetorical poses. Look at the guy on the far left of the Rosso picture. Right? Or the woman in the lower right corner with the baby hanging off of her. And you start to see these sort of, they're almost like they're show-offing. You said show-offing before, right? Or, yeah. But the artist is like, look what I can do. Yeah. Right? I can make the figure do this. And, they get these corkscrew poses, right? Where they twist on axis. And I think it makes a really nice comparison. Let me do this with the pen so people at home can see it. Right? But this figure here, I think that makes a really nice comparison. Right? You can see the way the body is twisted simply to show off the anatomy. Right? Margaret?
Is it kind of traumatic because of the, sculpture painting going,
Yeah.
Do you think they would have been doing that to impact it?
Oh, in other words, like the painting trying to hold its own against the sculptures nearby? That's a good question.
Well, when they were, arguing,
right.
They were,
the Tarragona.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is that if you look at, a week and a half ago when we last saw each other, this is surrounded by stucco sculptures of human figures as well. So there's already, and those are by a different artist, a different Italian artist named Prima Ticcio, and she's Francesco Prima Ticcio. And he designed also these plaster architectural insets that you can see, fruits and whatnot. But they're working hand in hand, the two of them are, Rosso and Prima Ticcio are. So, but that's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about that before, about these corkscrew poses as sort of trying to rival, almost like they're giving you multiple views in a single picture, right? I like that as an idea. I hadn't really thought it through, but I don't see why not, right? Amanda? Late Michelangelo is usually always considered a Mannerist. Yeah, Michelangelo is, early on, is very much sort of the paragon of high Renaissance art. And in fact, these artists who are Mannerists are often looking at Michelangelo's stuff, right? And that's kind of the basis of this, because he's already bringing high drama into his poses, and he's got these bodies and their musculature that are extraordinarily unnatural in their way, right? Nobody ever looked like Adam or David, Well, the women are Adam and David with breasts, right? So, but the early Michelangelo, you see, the thing about this is where the whole distinction between Mannerism and Renaissance sort of breaks down. Because, there are sources for it everywhere. Right? For example, now that we know what Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel really looked like, the colors that he was using up there, those are Mannerist colors. And all of a sudden, Mannerism starts to make more sense. Because there are two people that Mannerist artists are looking back at and channeling, which is what feeds Mannerism. One of them is Michelangelo. The other one is Raphael. Right? Right. And they're, again, because those two were seen as the leading light of Renaissance art in the 1510s, Michelangelo lives all the way to 1564. Right? So he's around for 40 more years. But by the time we get to things like the Last Judgment, the conversion of Paul, the execution of Peter, those late things, those late Pietas, Michelangelo is fully considered to be a Mannerist artist by that time. And even his architecture is. Well, that early one is but the late ones where they're standing like this and you start carving away. Anyway, long and short of it is, right, those are the two touchstones, and we'll talk about those as we look at these. It's by looking at Michelangelo and Raphael, instead of looking back at nature, that artists really become kind of Mannerist, right? And so the bodies that we see in Raphael, like this one here, are very much sort of, you could probably find things on the Sistine ceiling that remind you very much of that. And then Bordone, of course, is one more step removed, right? One step more removed from that. I thought I'd bring something in from the text that I saw, because it's just like I saw this, I'm like, well, there he is again, right? Pordenone, who we don't have a good example of at the National Gallery. This typical Italian altar is very Bellini-like in the setting. But if you look at the picture of John the Baptist on the right, there's that almost a similar pose, isn't it? He's moved the arm around a bit, and the muscles don't quite move onto the skin in the same way. But he's still posed to show off the sexy body, and the proportions are all goofy, aren't they? Look at how he's, from his waist to his chest, he's sort of just, wow, right? And then he's also like, exactly, well, that's that narrowing to the feet that adds that sort of elegance and grace that's part of that swell, right? But then over and above that is this sort of like gratuitous sexiness. Like, you don't need to see that much butt in John the Baptist, right? But he's showing off again, right? The body. And that sexiness, that eroticism is, again, I think part of what's happening with manners. I have to do first. Go ahead.
I was wondering, what does he have as well?
A broken piece of architecture. And the idea that you don't know, right? The idea that it's difficult to tell for sure is also kind of part of mannerism, right? You start to see these elements that seem to be included because the artist can. And just as the bodies become artificial and convoluted, the symbolism also starts to become a little bit more densely packed with things where you almost need like a user's guide to make sense of it all, right? Amanda?
Two things. One, that lamb looks like a little lamb tumbling.
It's not a particularly good-looking lamb.
Is it me or another one with hair?
No, you don't have hair either. It's a joke. You don't have hair either. No, I think this just was very lightly painted. This fellow above the pointing finger has hair. It's the caps as well. St. Francis wouldn't have hair because he wears the tonsure, so it's necessary, right? They never have hair on their bodies, right? It's just odd, isn't it? That's the thing. And I kind of like mannerism for that. It's just sort of like, wow, that's weird, right? Okay, so how do we get to mannerism, right? So part of it, we're seeing the Paris Pordenone, it's his experience, right? He goes to Fontainebleau, and that helps to sort of instill that in him by working for Francis I, right? But I want to look at sort of three things that make mannerism all the rage in Venetian painting in the 1540s. Right? And it's the heyday of Mannerist art is really in the 1540s and into the 1550s. Right? So what are the three basic things that get us? One of them are Mannerist artists who have come to Venice. Okay, that's the first thing we want to look at. Mannerist artists who visit Venice from other centers. Right? Mannerism was really born. It's the first place we see mannerism. Because again, remember, it's not like people going, hey, let's be Mannerist. Right? So the first place that we really can begin to see strong evidence of Mannerist art is in Florence in the 1520s. Okay? So it's really kind of a Florentine example. And like I mentioned, it's artists looking back at Raphael and Michelangelo, whose works are there, right? Who are Florentine but have since moved on, right? It's also after Raphael's dead. And it's after Leonardo is dead. They're both dead by 1520. So, two of the three primary Renaissance painters in Florence and Rome are gone. Right? We're in the new generation, the younger generation of artists. So, Vasari is one of these, right? Looking back at these works by people like Raphael, by Michelangelo, he loves Michelangelo. In fact, you know Vasari from the Lives of the Artists. He's the one that wrote that multi-volume biography of Italian Renaissance artists going all the way back to Cimabue, right? Giotto, Duccio, Cimabue. But they're primarily Florentine artists, okay? And it's like this opus. He worked on it for decades. He came out in two different versions, one in the 50s and one in the 60s, right? 1550s, 1560s. And the way it's set up, is that Italian Renaissance art is this sort of ladder that leads to Michelangelo, Michelangelo so much. That's where it was all headed. But he's also, quite a confident painter. We have a nice later Vasari down at the National Gallery from the 1570s or so. But this one was painted while he was in Venice. He decorated a palazzo in Venice with something like 13 different pictures, right? And this one's in your text, and it's labeled as the allegory of patience, but it's not. But that's a different picture from the same series. So they got the plate and the caption mixed up, right? It's an allegory probably of geography, sorry for the typo there. Given Neptune on the right and the globe behind, suggests, the world and whatnot. But I'm really more interested in cropping. You'll notice that the figures sort of there's not enough room there for them. They've been cropped off at the shoulders. So it's really kind of crowded. The lack of space, there's no there, right? We have the foreground, but then no extension of that space. And then, of course, the anatomy of that female figure, right? With, again, her very elegant and muscular back turned to us, right? These would have been available for people like Paris Bordone to see, other artists to see, as a touchstone for Mannerist art. And when Vasari, and we'll look at another artist who comes, when they arrive in Venice and do some Mannerist works in Venice, the major impact is on people like Paris Bordone, who are a generation younger than Titian, a generation younger than Lorenzo Lotto. Right? They're not impacted by this. But the younger generation are. Right? And they really begin to pick it up. So that's where we're going to see this impact, is less so in Titian, although people make a big thing about Titian's Mannerist period. But it's not as strong as what we see in people like Tintoretto or people like Paris Bordone. Right? That's where we see the impact. Right? All what? Yeah. And it's still at the same time, if you trace the spine to the hips to the legs, some of the proportions of the anatomy just don't quite work out. She's got an awful lot of lower body for this, even though that torso is very muscular. If you look at the size of the hips and the legs, there's not an organic sense of proportion. And by that I mean where everything is in relation to the other things. Right? This one here? Yeah, I agree. And the body is turning this way, right? And yet at the same time there's something that's sweeping down the other direction, It's very, very contorted, and I think that's part of the artificiality of it, right? It's not a natural pose. Right? Yeah, exactly right. At the same time, it's beautiful, It really is a lovely, I think it's a terrific composition. I used to not like Vasari when I was undergrad when I first looked at it, but I kind of think he's not bad, right? The other artist who comes at the same time is Francesco Salviati. We don't have any paintings by him here at all. He's also in Venice, so Vasari is there 1541, right? Does these paintings in the Palazzo. Salviati comes to Venice and paints this altarpiece in Venice as well, and other works, and these really begin to help cement the idea of Mannerism, where we can see the body of Christ and the head that doesn't quite work on the neck, right? But also, here we start to see strange color combos, right? Look at the guy in yellow and blue on the left. And even though, granted, I haven't seen this in person, so I can't tell you what it really looks like. But I think you start to get a sense of the strap over his shoulder that shoots from blue to orange as it goes into shadow. The guy on the right, whose neck cannot sit on those shoulders that way, right? It's a bowling ball sitting on his shoulders. There's no neck there, right? But look at that green and orange together, right? They're sort of jarring, unnatural color combos. Mary Magdalene, lower right corner, but with that pink and green, These are very Mannerist colors. And again, the collapsing of space, right? Where everything is sort of up flat close to the picture. And some paintings we looked at last week might fall into this category as well if you go back and look at them. Savoldo, for example, right? Certainly picking up, I think, on some of this. Even early on, there are echoes of that there, right? And then the angel up above, right? Again, there's our flamboyant pose, right? Really demonstrative, right? As if the pose itself is meant to say something. I mean when I say a rhetorical pose, right? It's a pose that is itself rhetoric. It's not natural. It's not what you're used to seeing. Now, I said we didn't have a Salviati painting here, but we have a drawing, which is really lovely, right? So, yeah, you want to go back? It does. Right. As does Paris Gordonius, for that matter, right? And maybe there is something about the body of Christ that has to be left a little bit more sacred, if you will, right? Sacrosanct than others. And, there's just all these other strange things as you look at. Like, you have those heads behind the Virgin Mary that are conversing in close proximity. But we don't really, from this, at least from this reproduction, can't really tell what the bodies are like. And you can finally figure it out, but the hand is kind of disembodied there, the one that's doing this, right? Directly next to the Virgin Mary's head. And you can figure out it probably belongs to the bearded fellow, right? But it's a little just kind of hard to read. It's almost like it floats back there, right? Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, it's just, again, mannerism, like I said, it's charmingly strange, right? Well, here's a Salviati drawing that we have, and I think we can talk about the foreground. This is the resurrection of Christ. So here in the foreground we have the the soldiers who have fallen asleep, right? And wake up and find the tomb empty. So we see them sleeping in the foreground, leaning on the shield. The three soldiers there, their shields discarded around them. Christ now rising from the tomb to disappear into the heavens, right? But look at the pose of the sleeping soldier front and center. Right? But you know what it is? It's directly out of the Michelangelo. At least two. And they're Amanda, late Mannerist Michelangelo, no less, right? The Medici tombs, he did a series of tombs for the Medici family in the 1520s and 1530s, and that looks just like one of the figures there. There's also a work of art after Michelangelo that Vasari brought with him, that we can find that picture posing as well. And we're going to get there later. It shows up later in the PowerPoint. Right? You'll see that. But even him, or the fellow sleeping next to him, with again that, I guess, the corkscrew pose, isn't it? His body's up this way, but then the shoulders are wrenched all the way around. And then Christ becomes overly elegant, doesn't he? As he moves forward. It's a terrifically beautiful pose, right? But again, it's got that corkscrewing, and there's something about it that's just artificially elegant. Right? Oh, yeah, very much. I can see that. Yeah, the Liberty Leading the People by Delacroix. Well, he certainly did a fair share of studying of Renaissance art. I doubt he knew this picture directly, but that's an interesting point. Again, anatomically speaking, first, tiny little feet, right? It's almost like a red or black figure vase painting in Greece, right? But then also start to look at the way the legs come together for the hips, and all of a sudden you realize that torso is like way too long, right? Because your torso is about the length of your thighs, roughly, right? If you think about it, when you lean forward, your knees come up to about here, right? If I wasn't carrying as much weight, I could do that, right? But his torso is huge, right? It's as long as his entire leg. And then there's that just everything is just it's flamboyant. It's really just too much.
It's like you're on Broadway, you know what I mean?
Well, if you just rose from the grave, wouldn't you be like, I'm back and I'm fabulous, right? That's the sense you get. It's just, he knows that nobody's ever done this before, right? This is no. Okay, it's very hard to point to a drawing as a reference point for mannerism because those are one-offs and not many people saw them. But this drawing was made as the prep study for an engraving, right? And engravings, when we think about how art ideas spread, etchings and engravings, prints, are one of the primary ways. Because there's multiple copies of them, you don't have to go to one chapel or one palace to see it. Over and above that, they fold up and fit in your pocket or your purse so they can travel much more easily than paintings can, right? So, Salviati's drawing was the basis of a print, and this is the way these ideas now start to spread, right? So, have artists, Mannerist artists visiting Venice, leaving works behind, which obviously generates interest in other works by them, right? So once you've seen the Salviati in person, that altarpiece we started with, that would then push you into wanting other pieces by him. And this brings us to that's our first conduit for Mannerism, right? Is Mannerist artists visiting Venice. This puts us to the second one, which is prints by Mannerist artists making their way to Venice. Not the artists themselves, but works by them making their way there, right? And in particular, prints by artists or prints after artists' compositions is another major conduit for bringing this new artificial style to Venice. Right, so Salviati is part of it. One of the most important artists for, and doesn't even forget Salviati. Let's go back. Let's see. Sorry, trying. Right. Parmigianino, from the town of Parma in northern Italy, was a painter as well as a printmaker. This is an etching, one of the earliest etchings, actually, when we began seeing etchings rather than engravings, right, where you were using acid to bite the plate. But he had never visited Venice himself. However, his prints seem to have been very, very popular, right? And he made prints himself, but also other artists made prints after his compositions. And these are another major conduit for Mannerist art making their way into Venice. Lower right corner, look at the length of the neck of that fellow with his back to us, right? And again, that idea of the sort of voluptuous back, right? The cropping, the man with the shield down below, cut off. There's not enough space for him here. He's, dramatic close-up. Christ supposed having that sense of rhetoric, right? That sense of flamboyant drama. It's even picked up in his hair, right? Yeah. It is. No, he's voguing, isn't he? He's striking it. And again, it goes back to, of course, he just woke from the grave. I would be showing, I'd be strutting it as well. Also, if I were as thin as Christ is, right, then there might give me more room to strut that up. And then you can see the flamboyance of that robe, right? We're looking at the body, but look at the robe, right? And the way that sort of swirls up around him is so extraordinary, right? We've got a lot of Parmigianos to look at, or at the National Gallery we could look at, right? I love this print. It's just such a gorgeous, looks modern almost, because he's not drawing anything. He's sort of carving out the darks, right? It's a really, remember Sarah talked about that in drawing class, about how when you're shading, you wanted to sort of like work in the darks first and don't draw any lines, right? Yeah. And this is a great example of that, right? But again, the body of Christ it's more anatomically accurate, but there's things that are just, like the shins are a little rubbery. That massive big toe, on Christ. There are bits of it that just seem, again, eloquent, The figure on the right border has this crowding everywhere we look, right? So these are Mannerist elements. And then there were also prints after Parmigianino designs which bring the sexy, right? So here is Venus. There's other ones where Vulcan is there pounding away on metal and she's in bed with Mars, right? In fact, there's another one I almost showed that one instead by Parmigianino. I thought it's better because she reminds us of those Titian nudes, right? Giorgione, where it looks as if she's fondling herself, right? But again, look at its back, and there we are, right? And there's our pose, very similar to what we're looking at with Paris Bordone on the right. Yeah. So these are prominent examples of prints by after Parmigianino, who's a really terrific Mannerist artist. So you don't have to come to Venice, right, to have an impact on Venetian art. That's kind of the lesson. This is now part 2 of the influences on Mannerism. It also brings us to talk about something which I think is really cool. Like one of the coolest Renaissance art movements are these multi-toned woodblocks, right? This is 4 different woodcuts printed over the top of each other with a line block printed last, right? And in part B, taking a composition by Parmigianino, where, again, do we need to talk about the mannerist elements again, right? This one seems a little bit more cohesive, but it's just a knockout print. And it's in a 4-block woodcut. So normally woodcuts, right? You know how the woodcuts are made? Did we talk about woodcuts in here? Do you guys all know how woodcuts are made? Does anybody need it? Please say. If you need me to go over it, I'm willing to spend 2 minutes going over it. You want to hear it? Okay. Right? So yeah, you have a block of wood, right? And you carve away the whites. Carve away the whites. So you leave the lines up. So if we imagine our wood block and we carve it, right? You would put the ink up here and carve away the bits down below. They put a piece of paper on top, and the positive part, the top of the mountain. Exactly like you see, right? Whereas an engraving or an etching is exactly the opposite. You would have a plate and you would carve the lines, or the axe would carve the lines, and you would run it with ink and then polish it, and you only leave the ink here, right? And then the paper comes across, and you need now pressure with rollers, right? And it pushes the paper down in, and it will have the carved lines rather than carving the whites. Okay? So in this case, he's got 4 blocks of exactly the same size. And each one of them has been carved to leave part of it, right? That will be printed. And in different layers of tone. So if we look at the lightest ochre that we see here, right, there's a lot of that everywhere. There's only a few places where it isn't, like on the Highlander's leg, it's more. Then the next one is the next darker, the sort of greenish here. And again, you can see the places where it is. And the third one is this sort of, where I guess it's 1, 2, 3, this darker brown here. And then the line, the 4th color, which is the accented eyes here. And it has to be spot on registered, otherwise it's going to. Right, it doesn't look like you go to USA Today and it's all in the machine. Well, you know, it's right. Or even a 3D movie where you take glass, right? That idea. So it's really, and it became very, very popular in the 1510s or so. And we see them then continue into the 20s throughout all of Europe. But in particular, Ugo de Carpi is one of the best, right? So, and it gives us a chance to sort of talk about these for a second. And I wanted to show you a couple of them, because I think they're really gorgeous. And Ugo de Carpi will come up again. So Ugo de Carpi is actually in Venice, right? And he's got it designed by Parmigianino, and he actually carves and prints and editions this in Venice. Now, the term that our historians use for these multi-block woodcuts is chiaroscuro woodcuts, right? They are woodcuts with lights and darks, right? Rather than a normal woodcut, which is either A or B, right? You see the black or it isn't. In this case, we have a range of tones. We have the chiaro to the scuro, right? The light and the dark. Okay? So that's the term that we use when we refer to these chiaroscuro woodcuts, right? And so if you're ever going to read more about them, that would be a search term that you would use, right? I don't know enough about that. There's a rooster standing behind him, already plucked. But it's still alive. It's still in. It's like that scene from, did you ever see Eraserhead? Early David Lynch movie, where there's a scene where they're sitting down to eat, and all of a sudden there's this little game hand on the plate that starts to dance. It's exactly what that kind of reminds me of. It's creepier than that. And it starts to leak some sort of viscous oil-like fluid. Typical David Lynch. Anyway, I don't know enough about that. Why there's a dancing pluck rooster behind it. But no, Gaggi's the one that's looking for an honest man, and went everywhere, simply looking for an honest man with a lamp. Well, that's neither here nor there. Sorry? He's got 2 books there. He's got 3 actually. One sitting in a teepee mode, one leaning up against, and the third one with his book there. I'd have to look into it further. I just brought this in as another I didn't really bring it in to talk about this subject matter so much as I brought it in to talk about mannerism on the one hand, Parmigianino and his influence on Venetian art, and then also to take a little side route to talk about chiaroscuro woodcuts a bit. So he was a philosopher. Yeah. Ergo the beard. Right? Sorry? I don't know! Greek, my guess is Greek. Diogenes sounds Greek. Right? Okay, another artist, Trento. Trent is in the upper region here. He's in the Veneto region, more or less, and not in Venice itself. Working after Parmigianino is Antonio da Trento. And here's another of these chiaroscuro woodcuts. Sorry? So like print form this is that another. So there was one time on the American Music Course where Prince did Get Off. And he had like 40 people on stage, and he turned around and he was wearing his pants. He turned around and he had no love. Right? It was fantastic. It was just there was amazing, right? So the video watcher was just like, and the performance was just to die for. Right? So yeah, but I think that's that erotic anatomy, right? That's a sort of highly artificial, roboticized anatomy, right? So here's Martineau is saying, I think it's called Peter Paul, they work harder together. I don't know why that says that, right? But there's two things about the DDX. Let's just call it Martineau and the same. That's right. Peter was. But Paul was not beheaded, but was cut down with the sword. So I don't know, I'll have to go back and look at that, right? But that's what we said on the Empire website. So we see our Roman emperor on the throne, directing his generals to direct the death of these figures, and again, what makes this mannerism, right? The collapsed face, the crowded, the artificial poses, the overly dramatic artificial poses, the anatomies that this figure on the right with one foot up on the second from the far right, one foot up on the face, right? That's a spot on there. And then exactly as Margaret mentioned, the sort of sexy figure is that. And the clingy fabric. Right. Yeah. No, it's true. Doing that base. And again, this is another 4 block, right? 4 block chiaroscuro woodcut, where it's in grayish tone with some green. And that drives the green. So I have to see it. And they can do these in Germany as well. That's always just been really I think they're really sort of extraordinary as Renaissance objects. These chiaroscuro woodcuts are. The nice thing about a chiaroscuro woodcut, right, is that since you're working with tone, and you're working in kind of a painterly way rather than a draftsmanly way, right? You're working with color and in fields rather than lines, right? That means once you've got the blocks, why not play with the color and see what happens with different colors? We've got, I think, 4 of those, right? And just the changes you get when you shift up the colors on these things, right? And this is what I find so fascinating. So there's even on a toned piece of paper, right? The whites are gray on this one, but using those different tones and how much difference is sort of the tones of brownish red making this. And then here's another one. In blue, right? These are all the National Gallery. They got copies of all of these. You can make an appointment. 10 to 4, Monday through Friday. I want to come and see a print. I want to see the Antonio da Trento after Parmigianino. You don't make an appointment in the print room yet. And they'll bring them out. And they'll give you a magnifying glass and a pair of white gloves. And they'll let you look, right? If this class met earlier in the day, we would go. It's just hard to do in the middle of the day, right? Maybe it was summer field trip or something like that. I'll call you guys up and do a summer field trip. Right? So this is our little side trip, right, to chiaroscuro woodcuts. It brings us out of this idea of prints after prominent artists, right, or prints by prominent artists. And we've been looking mostly at Parmigianino because he's such a good example of mannerism. These are all coming into Venice, right? And like I said, Ugo de Carpi is actually active there. The last thing I want to talk about, so remember I said there would be three trends, right? There were artists that come, prints that come, and then there were works by artists that just show up there as well. So Vasari came to Venice. He brought copies of Michelangelo stuff with him, and people saw them. So the original of this, later this one that Michelangelo's missing, but Vasari had a copy with him when he went to Venice. Remember our sleeping soldier that we saw down there with his foot up, right? It's based on this, right? He was seeing the Michelangelo. So there's that removal from nature through looking at Michelangelo for the human form rather than looking at the human form for the human form. Right? So works by Michelangelo show up, works by Raphael show up. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Raphael and Michelangelo are really the major inspirations for most Mannerist artists. And so when their works start to show up in Venice, that coincides actually when we start to see Mannerism there too. Right? It means that we don't know who actually did it, but it's not by Michelangelo, but definitely the original was. The composition is by Michelangelo, but not this particular work. In other words, this is in the National Gallery in London, and it means that it probably hung as a Michelangelo for a long time, and now the experts say there's no way he painted it because the technique's all wrong. Right? But Michelangelo is such a popular artist that people are making copies after his works. We just don't know who. So in the print we had up here before, right, we know who makes print. So Antonio da Trento after it's designed by Parmigianino. Right? In this case, anonymous after Leonardo. Right? So not Leonardo, Michelangelo. And did they send it work? Yes. And but that's not the reason we know. Often it's through archival references. Is really the way we know as much as that. Sorry? Yeah. Unless you're Lita, then they're rather quite friendly. Right? This again goes back to Greek mythology where she was seduced by a swan. Okay. So Michelangelo's works are there. Raphael's works are in Florence or in Venice as well. In particular, Raphael's career very briefly, right? He begins his career in Florence, and then in 1607 he goes to Rome. And Michelangelo had already gone to Rome from Florence, right? And the reason he doesn't go to Rome is that Pope in Rome is commissioning works right now. And he summons them to come and work for him. He wants the best artists working for him, right? So in 1505 or so, Michelangelo goes from Florence to Rome. In 1507, Raphael goes from Florence. And this is when Michelangelo does the Sistine ceiling. This is when Raphael does the table of Carthage, the School of Athens. Both of them stay in Rome for the next decade, right? Michelangelo moved back to Florence in the 1620s. Raphael's dead. The Pope that brought them there, Pope Julius II, died in 1514, succeeded by Pope Leo X. By this time, the Sistine ceiling is done. It needs the Sistine ceiling. So again, let me make a little schematic one. So here's the Sistine ceiling. Here's the floor. The Sistine floor. Nobody talks about the Sistine floor. That's a joke too. Okay, so there's the Sistine. This is a good Sistine. Right? And here's the ceiling. Right, the same is Adam. Here's God. Right? Okay. Already at this point here, and Michelangelo's stuff is all the way down to here, around the windows. Right? And then right here, there was a series of frescoes here that were from the 1480s. And were actually commissioned by Sixtus IV. That's what the Sistine is named after. Sixtus IV. Right? Sixtus. Right? Six. And he commissioned those ones. This was a Starry Sky, right? This was commissioned by Julius II from Michelangelo. See, okay? And that's right. This is 1514. thing is the full-size full cartoon. The same type of thing is going to be woven, so the tapestry is going to take it, transfer it to the loom. Right? And there were 10 of these. 6 survived, 4 are missing. And the 6 that survived are all in one. Raphael's tapestry cartoon. These are 15, 16, right? And woven after that. They actually got sent off to Brussels. That's where everything is. See, my dad, tapestry wasn't really thinking the tapestry was like 10 times as expensive. These were going to be the star of the show. Okay? The drawing for the conversion of Saul, right? The tapestry cartoon. Once they're done reading it, the cartoon survives. Right? It's 6 verse 1. The one for the conversion of Saul was in a collection in Venice. Right? Already in 1520. So Raphael is there from his composition. Now that drawing has been lost. I told you the tapestry, right? The drawing has been lost. And but you get an idea, right, of where it's coming from. I mean, anytime you see because it's a tapestry, you're going to get that space collapsing idea. Because tapestry, we would like things to be in a single plane. That's just the way tapestry works visually, right? You don't want a lot of perspective and looking back and sort of a subtle grading that one adult space, right? With the movie stuff. And so it tends to be a little bit more schmoozy, you know? Everything collapsed into a narrow field of vision, if you will. And Raphael is already by this point also a man that has this last one, a mannerist, and another is Raphael a mannerist. Because he also gets these very elegant and beautiful and eloquent poses that have that sense of rhetorical flourish that gets expanded upon by the mannerist, right? So, anyway, this is another. So, Michelangelo and Raphael are a big, right, for artists in Venice. There's a cartoon by Raphael. There are a couple works by Michelangelo. There are prints, again, engravings after each of them as well, right? Raphael, but that doesn't matter to the Venetians, right? That would not have mattered to the Venetians. That's one Michelangelo had more of a feud with Leonardo, right? So each of these cartoons, everybody when they went to we buy postcards when we go to the Vatican, right? But people wanted copies, you know? They wanted to have their own. And so there are actually other tapestries woven after the cartoons, and there are also numerous engravings after the Acts. And the theme was the Acts of the Apostles, right? Paul on one wall, Peter on the other. And so here's Christ anointing Peter to be, on this rock I will build my church. Right? And here's the moment when Saul of Tarsus, the persecutor of the Jews, is struck blind, falls from his horse, which rears off on the left, right? And at that moment is converted and becomes St. Paul, right? The author of most of the New Testament. Okay? So there he is dressed as a Roman general, Christ appearing to him. And I don't know if in the Bible it's actually Christ. It's just a vision. It's a bright light from heaven, isn't it? Isn't it just a bright light from heaven?
Yeah, it was a bright light and a voice. People didn't hear the voice
only Saul did, right? So everybody else is kind of freaked out because it's just this, and in fact that's something that Raphael kind of plays with, and we'll see others do as well. We will get to Tim right away. It's kind of, but I wanted to talk about you, right? Raphael's available. So another of the tapestries for Leo X was the miraculous draft of fishes. This is where Christ says, the apostles are getting nothing. Christ says, put them on the other side. And lo and behold, the nets come up bursting, right, with fish. It's almost proto-mannerist in that there's no way you can stand up in a boat like that, It's just there's something top-heavy about it, right? And again, the collapsing of space is something that's already there. But Jacopo Pisano, he's working in the Veneto. He's on the mainland. And he's working for the governor of the town of Bassano, right? But he has access to Raphael pictures, right? So I remember when I first walked into the National Gallery, when I first moved here, I was like, what are they doing with this copy after Raphael? And it didn't even say it on the label. It just said, Bassano. because I knew this. This is the one that almost everybody knows. Now, if we look at Bassano's picture, right, you'll notice that there are certain things that are different and certain things that are similar. A lot more flamboyance, right? Look at that's St. John in the middle. Look at it looks like Charlton Heston too, though. But look at that robe, right? That green robe just filled with the wind. It's not there in the original. Look at the oar between its feet coming out into our space, almost like a bad 3D movie from the 50s, right? Jutting out. Actually, everything's in 3D now. You have to say that anymore. Right? He's changed the man at the helm as well, right? Is rowing. Dissimilar from Raphael's, right? So there's a bunch of little changes, and of course some of them are older and different hairdos and whatnot, right? Most people think that he wasn't looking at the cartoon by Raphael, but probably looking at a number of different sources and sort of amalgamating them together. And one of them was our friend Ugo de Carpi, who made a chiaroscuro woodcut after this same composition. Right? And there's that oar coming out from between the apostles' legs toward us that wasn't in Raphael's original. So he's putting together a bunch of different things. But again, the man at the helm is different. That's an innovation on his part. Right? So this work, Bassano, just like Paris Bordone, is another work that really shows us the degree to which mannerism had become sort of all the rage in the 1540s in Venice. Look at Christ's arm, right? Look at Christ's choice of colors. It is. It's like a leopard, isn't it? It's really quite something. Yeah. And it's almost, it looks like it's painted on or something, isn't it? You know, he turns around and there's a big S on the front, something like that. It looks like superhero costume. That's right. It's so tight. Yeah, it just looks like he's got a big body. But that's something we see in a lot of Manners pictures. Now, we look through the rest of it. This is a little hot, right? The picture's not quite as, this is from the projector. The picture's not quite as hot as that. But still, that paint of Christ is picked up in the, I can't remember if that's John or Andrew standing. Andrew's probably a better bet. Standing there again with that totally rhetorical flourish pose, which comes out of Raphael originally, but it just seems more flamboyant now with the green blowing behind him. But again, that color combo, right? The orange worn by the two apostles here, and then the guy at the helm with that pink and green. Really fantastic, right? As a set of color combos. And it's also very artificial, right? I've got good details, right? There's Christ close up, making a gesture, and again the sun, very Paris Bordone like rippling flesh. That's a hallmark of Mannerist art. The more dramatic, billowing drapery, but again the color combo of that amazing pink and green side by side. It really is a great color combo, I think. But I could never pull it off. But there you go. And then look at the space as well behind them. Look at how the water of the Sea of Galilee sort of tips up. And especially behind the cave, it doesn't look like it goes back so much as it goes up. Right? So we have this space that sort of starts off parallel to the horizon, goes back with the boats, and all of a sudden it just starts to go up like that. It's very artificial. And again, it collapses the action all into a very narrow plane close. And there's these other little details, right? If you look at the boats that are right next to Christ's head, you get a sense of that chasm of space between background and foreground. There isn't any intermediary between the two, right? And this is all very Mannerist, right? Okay, the shoreline here is actually the town of Bassano. Like I said, this was painted for the governor of Bassano, and that is a portrait of the city, which sits near the foothills of the Alps in the Veneto, and he's brought the Alps a little bit closer to the city, just so he could squeeze it all into the same picture. But that was certainly to please the patron, was this to put in this seaport town. Bassano's real name is Jacopo del Ponte. There's a bridge across the river right there, and that's why he's named after Del Ponte. But he took on the name Bassano because he was trying to generate work outside of his own city. Okay, so this is where, and when the governor of Bassano had this commission for his palace in Bassano, and when his term of duty was over, since he's in the Veneto, he basically has connections with Venice. When his term is over, he moves to Venice, and he takes this with him, right, and puts it in his palace there. So it all has connections with Venice, sort of right, left, and center. Well, this one brings us to Tintoretto, right? Tintoretto's career starts as an arch mannerist, right? This is such a mannerist picture. It's so crazy crowded. And again, it's his version of Saul, so he's certainly working on that idea of the thunderclap from heaven, right? That scares the pants off of everybody and strikes Saul blind, right? And look at what happens around him, right? His horse is off to the right, I think. It's kind of hard to say for sure which horse is who. The Saul's down here in the foreground. Here's an unridden horse here charging into the water where other figures have been thrown from their horse into the water as well. And he's using manners, I think, good nature. What's that? It's a scene, right? It's a scene of chaos at the moment that heaven opens up its presence in the corner. And everywhere you look, you sort of double, triple, quadruple the number of horses. To get that swirling action everywhere you look, there's more horses than you need to get the point across. So the Paul's horse, which I said is Paul's horse here, with the green cloth on it. But there are a few more horses behind it sort of turning out at us. Another pole on the left bounding off out of control. He's also just, he's covering his ears and lost control of the reins. But that's not the only horse he has. There's another one right behind him here. He don't move, right? There's the horse of another horse in the tail. Another one here, another one there, right? Another one back up here, one upside down here, right? I love this somebody pushing the horse. And that idea of the horse, I think, is used or nature has gone, right? Everything's exploded at this incredible moment. Now, I've got some nice details of this, because it's a little bit blurrier than I thought it was going to be, of the horse upside down in the background, right? But again, twisting and turning of the figures in space, and again, it's that demonstrating his virtuosity. These are virtuoso figures in poses that are difficult, if not impossible, to draw. Right? Yeah, these are a lot blurrier than I thought. I think it's, they're sharp on my screen, so I think it's the internet connection is making them blurry. But there's Christ coming in with his hot pink, again, that mannerist hot pink that we really see everywhere, not just in Venice, but everywhere. Upper right corner, again, parts of it are left kind of sketchy, but there's that figure. Is he chasing after his horse, I wonder? It almost looks like he's pushing them, but that's really not the case. But again, these artificial colors, artificial poses, everything overblown, which is so typically mannerist in every possible way. And again, your eye is invited to wander around and see all of these details. Let's see where I am with this and what's coming up next. On a certain level, one wonders if he's not been looking at other things as well. Here, this pose is wonderful, and the body is rendered very beautifully, but where is his other leg? It's just the body is turned in a way where you feel like you should start to see or at least the reverse hip, right? Like you should see something over here. And then it's just, it's odd, isn't it? And then these mannerist bodies here, with their inorganic articulations or proportions, is totally where Tintoretto is coming from. And these figures all, I swear, if I spent the time, it would take a couple days, to sort of start flipping through images and finding a reference point probably for every single one. I know that guy from somewhere else, and I can't tell you where, but I've seen him with his hand on his head like this. I think it's on Leonardo, right? But I've seen him somewhere, and part of me thinks that I've seen every single one of these guys somewhere else, right? And that's kind of part of what makes mannerism mannerism is that idea that everything's been lifted from another work of art. Everything's referenced elsewhere, right? Well, again, those Roman soldiers did have those leather flanges that hung down. It just ended up looking a little bit more like a pleated skirt there. It's a fantastic color, right? And I mean, the colors are chosen for their own internal harmony. So this is true for Venetian painting all along, right? And if we think, this is why Venice is odd in a way, because, right, but these don't look like Giorgione colors. These don't look like early Titian colors. Now, when you think about, for example, the Divinity, that wonderful Giorgione Divinity, and that fantastic orange that Joseph is wearing, remember that in your mind? That yellow orange and the way it kind of swirls up and these have always had sort of first grab at really good colors, right? And they have always been a little artificial, but sometimes they've been muted by sort of atmosphere and, Giorgione's, the landscape works, and it kind of, see how it moves back into space over the rock, and that all sort of tempered it. But here nothing does, right? And so here when we get colors that don't make a whole lot of sense, that sensitive is picked up by the beginning of the composition. The lack of balance to anything, right? All of these very important, between other images, right? But you just add it up together, and it's, this is longer than the skin type, right? It's just everything is jumbled and moving. But like I said, he's using it to effect because the theme almost requires that. Right? Not everything does, but this one does. So it benefits the subject matter here, even though I was that on purpose, right? Or it's one of the things that makes it really quite a good picture. Let's compare it back to Raphael, right? And you would have known this. Remember the cartoon for this was in Venice. You'll notice that the pose of Saul is derivative but similar, right? Not verbatim. And also keep in mind that the Raphael would have been flipped. The cartoon would have been the other direction. Okay? So that means the right leg, his left leg that's up here, his right leg is up here. Well, flipped, it would be his left leg. Right? Also, the rearing horses are part of it, the one coming off in the background. Look at the figure of Christ coming into the past. You can see, again, derivative, but not a mirror. Right? He's certainly been looking back at this. But unlike Raphael, which is moving toward mannerism, it doesn't have the same confusing jumble, right, that Tintoretto's does. Yeah. The other one that he may have known through copies is a really famous Parmigianino, right? And again, the figure of Saul, right? And like I said, I think I could probably spend a couple weeks and come up with something for everything in this, somewhere along the line that he might have known. Be kind of boring in the long run, but at the same time, that explains. Isn't that the weirdest horse too? Tiny, tiny little head, right, and great big swelling buttocks, right? Okay. Yeah, definitely Titian. Right, this is the same time period as Titian's famous Poesia pictures are from the 50s, right? And so, definitely, the older generation that lives on seems to be much less impacted. Now, we'll end with this, right? So, because I have more to around, but we'll get to that. The manner of saying, as I mentioned, is us, right? Manner is the saying in the Venetian painting in particular, right? This stuff is the 1540s, right? Roughly 15, 20 years. Okay? It continues after that, but it starts to sort of figure out. Did I put up the black background on ideas. That's why it's so long to look. Sorry about that. Let's not easy to look at them, right? And the white background. Okay, 1564. Very monumental year in Italian art history. One of the things that happened in the 50s, began in the 50s, culminated in 1564, was a group of theologians meeting to determine what to do about those pesky Protestants. So remember back in 1519, if you remember, back in 1519, right? Martin Luther began the Protestant Reformation, okay? That's in 1570, somewhere back there, right? Luther hosted protests against the Catholic Church, challenges the Archbishop Brendan to the debate, right? And they came in. They're hoping it's sort of like John Kerry and the Twin Coast and the whole Russian path, but they ignored it and go, right? And they did nothing. The Catholic Church did nothing. So Protestantism began starting to go crazy, taking foothold everywhere in Europe. 1543, the Catholic Church finally decided to reform from the faith. Hey, these just got beat, right? You're right. There's some things we're not doing well. And they found a series of meetings in the city of Trent, the Council of Trent. And this begins the Counter-Reformation. The Church's counter to Counter-Reformation, right? This is a series of 3 meetings scheduled over the course of 20 years, right? So the first of the 3 meetings, the Council of Trent, the last, third section, was in 1564, okay? In 1564, one of the things that they addressed was art. Because the Protestants had taken the second commandment, which said no graven images, no carved images. No painted images, right? There's no rival God. Right? Moses said it. God said those were Moses. Okay? They started to say, well, Protestants are destroying images. What is our official position on the role of images in the church? And the official position was images are very important because not everybody can see. Images are the Bible of the illiterate, right? They can reach out and they can teach where words can go. But in order to do that, you need to be clear. You need to be direct. You need to be realistic. You need to be emotionally engaged. And all of this runs counter to that, right? Especially the clarity and the realism. Right? Once the precepts come out, once the Council of Trent proclaims that religious art should look a particular way, they don't think that they tell how it shouldn't look. It shouldn't look mannerist, is really what they're saying. Right? As soon as that when we start to see mannerism transform into something else, right? It's broken. Right? That is the linchpin for that movement, and primarily with religious images. So the Council of Trent hated this picture because it doesn't make sense immediately. You have to look at it wrong, right, to figure it out. They would have liked something that was more dramatic, more immediately appealing, more realistic. Okay? So they didn't like the hot colors, they didn't like the strange poses, they didn't like the difficulty of legibility. That means that this mannerist moment that we're talking about in the 40s and the 50s begins to end in the 60s, and we start to see a movement toward more sort of sedate imagery. Right? It doesn't just explain the origin. But we start to see that. Okay. Sorry for the 3 or 4 minutes. Okay. So Monday we'll pick up, finish up really in the red, and we'll look at some stuff down there. And then on Friday, museum. Right? Museum Friday. And a response to me by email.